All right, so today we are going deep on the Urantia Papers. Have you ever heard of this one?
Oh, yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your average book, right?
No.
Like, it's this dense, complex text that tries to explain everything from, like, the origins of the universe to, like, the history of humanity.
Yeah, it's like someone took all the biggest questions you could ask and just tried to write down all the answers.
Yeah, and we're going to try to unpack some of the key ideas about God and the universe that are in this book.
Right.
Just to give our listeners a little taste.
Yeah, sounds good.
So one of the most interesting things about the Urantia Papers is its unique perspective on God, right? It's not the typical portrayal you might find in some other religions.
Yeah, it really emphasizes this idea of God as a loving, personal father, which is different from that more distant, judgmental figure you might see elsewhere.
Okay, so more like a compassionate parent.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And it goes even further by giving all these detailed descriptions of God's attributes.
Okay, so like what kind of stuff are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, it says God is omnipresent, meaning he's everywhere at the same time.
Okay, so kind of like a universal Wi-Fi signal or something.
Yeah, something like that. Always connected.
Got it.
And then there's omnipotence, which means unlimited power.
Right, right.
But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Urantia Papers also emphasize God's justice and righteousness.
So it's not just about being all-powerful.
Right. It's about using that power fairly and justly. It explains that while God does punish wrongdoing, that justice is always balanced with compassion.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about punishment. There's a sense of understanding and forgiveness, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
It really stresses that God's infinite love is the driving force behind everything. Not fear, not appeasement.
Okay, so love is the foundation of it all.
Yeah, that's the key takeaway.
That's actually a pretty cool idea. So we have this all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's this other really interesting concept that the Urantia Papers introduce called the thought adjuster.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering about that, the thought adjuster.
So the book explains that God, because he's so loving, has given each of us a fragment of himself. And this fragment is called the thought adjuster.
It's like having a little piece of God living inside your mind. That's kind of trippy.
It is. And it resides within our minds, almost like an inner guide or a mentor, helping us to connect with the divine.
So it's not like a separate entity, it's more like a spiritual presence.
Yeah, more like a presence or a guidance.
Okay, that's really interesting.
It helps us make better choices and it draws us closer to God.
So even when we're messing up, it's like there to guide us back on track.
Yeah, it's like a gentle nudge in the right direction.
All right, so we've talked about God's loving nature, we've talked about the thought adjuster. But the Urantia Papers doesn't stop there. It goes on to describe this incredibly vast and complex cosmology.
It's a pretty mind-boggling cosmology.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It all starts with this place called the Isle of Paradise, which is described as the eternal center of all creation.
So it's like the ultimate source of everything, like all energy and all reality just flows from this point.
Yeah, you could think of it like that. It's like the cosmic ground zero.
Got it.
It's beyond our understanding of time and space. It's a realm of absolute perfection.
So it's like this perfect, unchanging source.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then radiating out from paradise is the central universe, which is called Havona. It's made up of billions of spheres, and it's a realm of perfect harmony and beauty.
Billions. We're already talking about huge scales here.
And it's inhabited by these perfectly created beings who live in complete alignment with God's will. It's like a blueprint for a perfect universe.
All right, so we have paradise as the source, Havona as this realm of perfection. So where do we fit into all of this?
Well, our universe, and billions like it, make up what the Urantia Papers call the 7 superuniverses.
Okay, 7 superuniverses.
These superuniverses are still evolving and developing, and they're filled with change, growth, and free will. It's where things get a little messy, you know, with beings making choices, making mistakes, and learning.
So we're in the work in progress zone.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Our universe, which is called Nebadon, is just one tiny part of this grand evolving cosmos.
Right, right.
And each of these local universes, like Nebadon, is ruled by a creator sun.
So there are multiple sons of God out there creating and running these universes.
That's right. And each one is like a personal representative of God within their own universe.
So they're like mini gods, each with their own universe to oversee.
They're not exactly mini gods, but they do have immense power and wisdom, and they're responsible for guiding the evolution of their creation.
Okay, so it's more like they're carrying out God's will within their specific domains.
That's a good way to think about it. And this whole concept really emphasizes the idea of God working through others, delegating and empowering his creation to participate in this grand scheme.
So it's not like God is micromanaging everything. He's given his sons the freedom and the power to shape their universes.
Exactly. And speaking of the grand scheme of things, the Urantia Papers have a lot to say about the role of humans in all of this.
Okay, so we're not just some random specks in this vast universe.
No, not at all. The book calls humans ascension candidates, meaning we have this incredible potential to evolve spiritually and eventually make our way back to paradise.
So it's like this cosmic journey of self-discovery and growth, and God has set it all in motion.
That's the idea.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing thought, but it also sounds like an incredibly long and complex journey. Like, how does that even work?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question, and that's exactly what we'll be digging into in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so if you want to hear more about this incredible cosmic journey that we're all supposedly on, make sure to tune in for the next part of our deep dive into the Urantia Papers.
It's going to be a wild ride. So we talked about God as a loving father and how he's given us like a piece of himself in the form of a thought adjuster.
Right.
And we've touched on this just incredible universe with all these billions and billions of spheres. It's a lot to take in, but the Urantia Papers don't stop there. Like, it goes into all this detail about what this ascension career actually looks like.
Right, because saying we're on a journey back to paradise is one thing, but like, I need some specifics.
Sure.
What happens after we die? Like, what are these different spiritual levels actually like?
Okay, so picture this. You die.
Okay.
But it's not the end. It's like a graduation.
Oh, okay.
You shed your physical body, and your soul moves on to the next stage of the journey, to the mansion worlds.
Mansion worlds. Sounds kind of fancy.
Yeah, they're described as just incredibly beautiful and peaceful.
Okay.
Imagine gardens, art, music, just everything designed to help you adjust to this new, more spiritual existence.
Okay.
And there are 7 mansion worlds, each one building upon the last, kind of like going through different grades in school.
So it's not like heaven where you're just like hanging out on clouds, playing harps all day.
No.
You're actually still learning and growing.
Yeah. It's all about continuing your education, shedding all these earthly limitations, and developing a deeper understanding of God's will.
So the mansion worlds are like cosmic college.
Yeah, you could think of it like that.
Okay, I like that analogy.
It's a chance to like really process your life experiences and prepare for the next stage of the journey.
Okay, so you graduate from Mansion World University, and then what?
Well, the next stop is the local universe headquarters.
Which is?
For us, that would be this place called Salvington, which is the capital of Nebula.
But on our local universe.
Yeah.
So if the mansion worlds are like college, Salvington is like entering the real world.
Yeah, it's like getting a job in the cosmos.
Got it.
Salvington is just like bustling with activity. You encounter beings from all across the local universe.
Oh, wow.
And you engage in all these different types of service work and continue to grow spiritually.
That sounds pretty amazing, but like, what about people who maybe weren't exactly saints during their time on Earth? Did they get to experience all of this too?
That's one of the things I really appreciate about the Urantia Papers.
Yeah.
It emphasizes God's mercy and forgiveness.
Yeah.
No one is like eternally condemned.
Oh.
Everyone has the opportunity to learn, grow, and evolve regardless of what they did in the past.
Interesting.
The mansion worlds, they act like a cosmic catch-up program for those who might need a little extra help.
So even if you made some bad choices in your earthly life, you still get a chance to redeem yourself and continue on the journey.
Exactly. It's never too late.
Okay.
To turn towards God and start making progress, it's really a message of hope and second chances.
It's a much more compassionate view than some other religious traditions that I've heard of.
Yeah, it's not about condemnation. It's about rehabilitation.
Right.
And this journey doesn't end with Salvington either.
Oh.
You progress to the super universe headquarters, then to Havona, the central universe of perfection, and ultimately to the Isle of Paradise.
Wow, that's a long journey.
Billions of years spanning multiple levels of existence.
Talk about playing the long game.
Yeah, but it makes you think about this earthly life differently, right?
It does. It's not just this brief moment. It's setting us up for something so much bigger.
It really puts things in perspective.
But what does that journey even entail? What are we actually doing on all these different spiritual levels?
So the Urantia Papers explain that our spiritual evolution involves expanding our consciousness, deepening our understanding of God's will,
Okay.
and learning to express our creative potential in ways that align with the divine plan.
So it's about becoming more godlike.
Yeah, in our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Okay, but that sounds kind of abstract. Can you give me like a concrete example? Like, what might a day in the life look like on one of these higher spiritual levels?
Sure, let's imagine a day on Salvington.
Okay.
Imagine communication is telepathic. The beauty is so intense, it's almost overwhelming.
Wow.
And everyone is dedicated to service and growth.
Okay.
You might spend your time studying philosophy, engaging in creative arts, participating in projects designed to help other evolving worlds.
So it's not just sitting around meditating all day.
No, not at all. It's about actively using your gifts and talents to contribute to the unfolding of the grand universe.
Okay, so it's more like active participation.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is,
So it's not just sitting around meditating all day.
No, not at all. It's about actively using your gifts and talents to contribute to the unfolding of the grand universe.
Okay, so it's more like active participation.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, as you progress through these levels, your abilities and understanding just continue to expand.
Oh, wow.
It's a journey of continuous learning and discovery.
That sounds amazing, but I have to ask, what about reincarnation? Do the Urantia Papers ever mention that?
Interestingly, no.
Wow.
It specifically refutes the idea of reincarnation.
Okay.
It says that we have this one life as a material being, and then this continuous progression through these spiritual realms.
So it's one shot here on Earth, and then our souls move on to this incredible spiritual adventure.
That's what the Urantia Papers say, and that makes our time here all the more important.
It does.
It's our chance to choose God, to begin aligning our will with His, and to lay the groundwork for everything that follows.
It really adds a whole new dimension to the idea of, like, making the most of your life.
Yeah, right, because these choices we're making now have these eternal consequences.
Right, but I still have so many questions. Like, what does it even mean to achieve union with God? What does that actually look and feel like?
Those are big questions, and the Urantia Papers offer some pretty intriguing answers.
Okay.
It describes this union as a state of perfect harmony, love, and understanding between your soul and God.
So it's not like we literally merge into God or anything.
No, not at all.
Okay.
You retain your individuality,
Yeah.
but you achieve this complete unity with God's will.
It's like a perfect symphony where every note is in harmony, creating something beautiful and whole.
That's a great way to put it.
It's hard to wrap my head around something so vast and profound.
I get it. It challenges our human understanding. But even if we don't fully grasp it, the very idea of striving for this kind of union with God, it's pretty inspiring.
It is. It gives us something to aim for.
Exactly. Something to guide our actions and choices in this life.
I'm realizing just how much more there is to explore and learn about this whole cosmology.
Oh, we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to uncover. The role of celestial beings, the workings of the spiritual hierarchy.
It's a universe teeming with life, purpose, and just unimaginable possibilities.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so exciting.
It is. It reminds us that there's so much more to existence than just what we experience here on Earth.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we've journeyed from this Isle of Paradise all the way to Salvington, the capital of our local universe.
It's been a wild ride.
It has, but I feel like we've only just like scratched the surface of this whole cosmology laid out in the Urantia Papers.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to explore, but before we get too lost in the vastness of it all,
Yeah.
I think it's important to bring things back down to earth.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in all these mind-blowing concepts.
Right.
And forget how they actually apply to us like here and now.
Exactly. So let's talk about how these teachings can actually impact our actions and our relationships and our overall view of life.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me some practical takeaways.
Mm-hmm.
How can understanding the Urantia Papers help me live a better life?
Well, for starters, the book really emphasizes making choices that are in line with God's will.
And just to remind us, God in this context is that loving father figure, not a vengeful judge.
Exactly. It's not about following a rigid set of rules out of fear. It's about understanding what God would want for us, what would bring us closer to Him and to our highest potential, which is where the thought adjuster comes in.
Right, that inner compass.
Exactly.
So how do we actually tap into that guidance?
The Urantia Papers suggest practices like prayer, meditation, sincere reflection.
So it's not about like begging God for favors or trying to bargain with Him.
Mm.
It's more about quieting the mind and listening for that inner voice.
Exactly. The more we do this, the more attuned we become to that divine guidance, and that helps us make better choices.
Right.
Choices that lead to greater happiness and fulfillment and spiritual growth.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about this idea of service? I know that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
In the Urantia Papers, especially when they talk about these higher spiritual realms.
Right.
So how does that translate to life here on Earth?
Well, if we think of life as this journey of spiritual evolution, then service becomes a key part of that growth.
So it's not just about focusing on my own personal salvation.
No.
It's about using my talents and abilities to make the world a better place, help others.
Exactly. And that can look like a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be these grand gestures.
Right.
It can be as simple as offering a kind word or lending a helping hand.
So just being a more compassionate presence in the world.
Exactly.
I like that. That's empowering.
It is. It means that each of us, no matter who we are or what our circumstances are, we have the power to make a positive impact.
Okay, so understanding the Urantia Papers can help us live more purposeful lives, lives of service,
Yes.
guided by divine inspiration. What else? Are there any other, golden nuggets of wisdom that can help us out here?
Well, the book also offers a really interesting perspective on suffering. It acknowledges that suffering is just a part of life
Yeah.
in this evolving universe.
Right.
But it stresses that God doesn't cause suffering. He works within the laws of the universe to bring good out of evil, to even use our mistakes and our tragedies as opportunities for growth.
So it's not about blaming God for our problems.
No.
It's more about trusting that even in those tough times, there's a purpose there.
Yeah, a possibility for transformation.
That's a really helpful way to think about it.
It is.
Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, with the question of why bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
And the Urantia Papers seem to offer this totally different way of understanding suffering.
Right, one that's more about growth and evolution.
Okay, so the Urantia Papers is not just this book about cosmology or the afterlife. It's also like a guidebook for living a better life here and now.
It's about connecting with that inner divinity.
Yeah.
Making choices that are in alignment with God's will, serving others, embracing challenges.
And ultimately, this path leads us back to God.
Back to that source, the love of our Heavenly Father.
This has been an amazing experience.
It has.
I mean, diving into the Urantia Papers, it's challenged my assumptions, broadened my perspective. It's given me this whole new way of thinking about life and death and everything.
It really is a profound text.
It is.
And even though we've just scratched the surface, I hope our listeners are feeling that spark of curiosity, that desire to maybe explore this book for themselves.
I hope so. And to anyone listening, if you're looking for a book that will really make you think and maybe even change your life, I highly recommend the Urantia Papers.
It just might blow your mind.
It might. And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep reaching for the stars.